Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 7 of the Launch Sequence podcast. This week, I am here with my first guest, Vagabond Prime. He's a good friend and a buddy from my organization, and he's come to talk with us a little bit about Star Citizen and Mass Effect and some other sci-fi gaming stuff. And actually, a podcaster in your own right, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've been. Oh, go ahead.
Grizzled old veteran, you could say.
Yeah, you've been going for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started the Geek Show podcast in 2008, so we're 175 podcast years old.
Do you remember your 7th episode?
Yeah. Let's see. Our 7th episode. I think we were in the middle of arguing about whether or not Battlestar Galactica was pulling off its last season. Well or not.
That was back so, with the reboot, huh?
Yeah. The good Galactica.
Yeah, that was enjoyable. I didn't actually get to finish it, so I think I'm gonna need to at some point. I think I only got to like season 3 or 4 or something like that.
Pissed so many people off, and I loved it.
Well, I feel like now I'm gonna have to remember my 7th episode because you're hundreds of episodes in, right?
Yeah, we're closing in on 500. We've been broadcasting weekly since, let's see, May 2008, and we have not missed a week. And that's with panelists dying. That's with, geez, you name it.
Wow.
Earthquakes, flash floods.
That is a show.
Yeah, we keep going.
There's a whole history book with that show. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the show must go on. So I always tell people I was in my 30s when it started. I'm in my early 50s now. So it's they'll basically just put the stone sarcophagus over us at some point, and we'll keep going.
It's like a part of the family at that point.
It is, and it's funny. The analogy is apt. Like, you have people that you've been working with that closely for this long, and we were all friends beforehand, so for decades. So that helps. But yeah, you have the same thing where after a while you're like, "Will you shut up?" And then the next week you're like, "Oh, it's Thanksgiving weekend," and then the next week it's everybody's happy to see each other again. So it's kind of funny.
That is wild.
Those family.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I feel like that's how Star Citizen is gonna be. Like, I'm gonna be talking to people in 10, 15 years that I was playing Star Citizen with back when I was still in college. And it's going to be very strange.
Yeah, it is. And then you have the danger of hyper familiarity, I think, is part of what is going to creep up with anything like Star Citizen or podcasting or whatever else. Like you are this enmeshed, that embedded with the content, that married to the content, and you find yourself hitting a level of toxic familiarity with it after a while.
Well, I hope to avoid that. At some point, my wife will just take it all over.
Right.
And it will be Mrs. Space Tomato from now on.
I watched her stream. She had a great time.
Oh, she loves it. She's very involved. She's actually listening to this. She edits the podcast, so she's very involved. Awesome. She loves being part of Space Tomato. I love having her with me, and it's becoming sort of a family thing. So we're having a lot of fun with it.
You have an editor in-house?
Yes. An audio master. Yes.
No, an editor is something that a lot of people don't realize you need. So, like, my day job is multimedia content, and I spend for every hour recorded 5 or 6 hours editing. And I know with Geek Show, it took us, I think we were on the air for 3 years before we found our current editor, who's a god that walks his man, right? So that's what I always tell people. You want to get into this line of work, you want to do this, you want to create content, edit.
Yeah.
So
I think now I probably spend more time doing research and writing for my videos, but originally it was just the editing before I kind of figured out my flow. But my wife's great at it. And as I grow learning how to podcast, she's growing learning how to edit. And it just works like that. So
that's awesome.
Having a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
Rare combination.
Yeah. So getting into Star Citizen, we are coming up towards the end of 313, and you are a science buff, correct?
Yeah, I love science fiction science, like
Right.
natural science.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
real world, natural science is my thing. I like natural science.
Mhm.
I'm not a calculus guy. I'm not a theorem guy,
Yeah.
but I really like to see what happens when you put, item A with item B and
Yeah.
shake it.
The good old
So
reactions.
yeah, but yeah, I'm a huge Geordie LaForge fan, right? I realize he's the engineer in Star Trek, but Geordie always seemed to have the scientific approach to why things go boom on the Enterprise. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love science fiction science, and that's what I want to do in Star Citizen, right?
So then I imagine the delay of the medical gameplay and the FPS radar and scanning was kind of an annoyance to you.
Not at all.
No, you
Not
didn't.
at all.
Were you
No.
not? You weren't looking forward to that, really?
Oh, it was, but I'm not annoyed by the delay. I'd rather they take their time and get it right.
Fair enough.
I have no reason to. I think seeing that ask back in 2013, 2014, where they said, "How many of you would like to see us do it right and take all the time that it takes to do it right?"
Mhm.
And that's kind of my mantra with this game: is do it right. I don't care if I'm 65 when it happens. Just do it right. And if you
Fair
do
enough.
that, take all the time you need.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Make me wait.
And that's a pretty popular opinion, I'd say, in the community.
Yeah.
A lot of people. That's why this game has gone so long, because a lot of people are like, it's gonna take the time. And even recently, I think a lot more people are starting to realize that that time is kind of paying off in some ways, and
Right.
there is an actual game being made, so they're more interested in looking for it.
I think I also have the advantage of being just a little older. The last Star Wars movie that I saw as a teenager was Return of the Jedi in 1983, and it was 1999, 2000. So 15, 16 years between Star Wars content that was actually not a book or a comic book. So
That's a long time.
for me, as a fan, I'm used to the long wait.
Yeah, I can bet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, are you happy? I think they're actually going to be talking about the medical gameplay probably right now on Star Citizen Live today. But they did talk a bit about this on a recent talk. Chris and Sandy got back in front of the camera. For anybody who hasn't seen it, it's a good video. It's a good update. But
It
I
is.
believe he gave us a little bit of an explanation about the medical gameplay and how they wanted to make it a little bit better than what they could have put into 314. And that kind of falls in line with what you were saying. They won't, do it right. Don't rush it. Don't get it straight into the game. Make sure it's got a little more to it. So
Yeah.
when it comes to that, and you said you're interested in science gameplay, is that like up there, or are you talking about being in the? I don't actually know if this will be a thing, but like being in a lab and, like you said, mixing things together, crafting, I guess, potions instead of items.
Are you going to be the guy that's back in your Reliant Sen mixing up the components to make the healing injections for the Gray Cat medical gun? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's gonna be there, but I don't think it's gonna be there anytime soon. I do get excited about the healing gameplay. It's not my thing. I was never the druid or the cleric in my D&D games. That wasn't my thing. I was always more of an archer, So, and I think of all games like this in those roles. You have your DPS, you have your offhand DPS, you have your support roles, you have your healers.
Right.
And your science gameplay is a lot like that. You're off support, you're healing, you're buffing, and I think that's a lot of what we're going to do. But anytime I play a game like this, I'm usually the nerd that's off back building the homestead. I'm the guy that's crafting nonstop because crafting got exciting. So if they figure out a way to work that in for science, I'm sold forever. The medical gameplay I'm excited about because I think it's going to add a new dynamic to your missions. So your cave missions, I know a lot of people don't like the cave missions. I think they're just a hell of a lot of fun. But going from you got shot, you bled out, to you got shot, you're unconscious, you need a medic to stabilize you and get you back to the Cutlass Red so that you can get to a hospital after the mission. That sounds amazing. So immersive and cool.
How about combat medic then? Being more in the action.
I know Drazen's excited about that. We've been talking about that quite a bit lately. And I suck at combat, so I definitely need something to do in a cave mission. So medical combat, I'll get in there.
That was me sometimes in the Battlefield series. I was like, I can't really hit anybody, so I'll just keep healing you guys.
Right, exactly. So I could see that being really cool. I like the idea of being able to just help your buddies out and be essential in that role, even if you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, because I clench. Oh god, it's a bad guy. Well, what do I do?
Yeah,
so
that's actually.
I'll just focus on you and Drazen.
I'm not great at combat in this game in Star Citizen. I've always thought that I was pretty decent at Halo, and that's kind of been where I stay. I venture out from there every once in a while, and I usually I get it handed to me, and I get back in line and I go play Halo. So I don't think Star Citizen will be much different for me, unfortunately.
Right.
I'll be right there with you as a medic, or I'll be up in the
go.
spaceship. I'll be watching over you guys.
Right. See, that's the part that's exciting to me is ops, right? Ops and logistics, running an operation and being the guy that's in the Carrack saying, "All right, team, go," and just monitoring things and making sure that they've got their supplies, making sure they've got that whatever. That stuff sounds cool. So
yep. Yeah, just like sitting up in the Carrack in orbit. You got a couple friends with you. One of them's running on the scanning the scanning station, and they're taking in the local space. Somebody else is hopping in the Pisces because they got to deliver supplies to the ground base, where you got a couple other people down there, and it's all just happening in real time. Everybody's talking. It's like like the dream that they would try to sell when they advertised games to us like 15 years ago, and everybody was just like, that's just not going to be in a video game.
Right. We got to see that with In the Garden, just in GII a couple weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago. Grignac ran a tour of Stanton event, and he didn't necessarily run it, but he definitely orchestrated some things, and I got to see what the game can be as a sandbox, right? People creating their own content, and it was breathtaking just seeing where we can go with this thing. And I think that's the picture people lose with they get caught up in where's my Polaris, where's my Orion, where's this, where's that. That's not the game, guys. The game is what you make it, and they're giving you the tools. It's like if you do any tabletop role-playing games, they gave you the monster manual, they gave you the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's up to you to run the game, and I think that's cool.
I completely agree. I was just in a talk with Dig That 32 this Thursday.
I watched that.
Yeah,
and
he asked, "What is the best thing in this game? What would you tell somebody's best thing in this game?" And I was like, "It's the sandbox. It's the ability to do that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
But it never gets old. And can you give me 1 second? Sorry, my dog's right outside the window.
Dogs will do that.
He's out there just like treating a water bottle like it's a chew toy, and so in the background I just hear this crackling noise constantly.
Yeah, the best chew toy ever, right?
What were we talking? We were talking about Star Citizen.
The sandbox. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The sandbox is just like you said. People kind of get caught up on the ships that they don't have, and I totally understand that. I'm not going to fault anybody for that. You paid money for it.
I want my toy too.
Granted, the way that that's a whole thing. I won't get into that, but
no,
there really is something to be said about being able to hop into a game that looks like this at the very least and do the things that we can do already. And like you said, sometimes it comes together and you really see it happen, and it's great. And I've recorded that sometimes. I've even put some of those moments in my videos, and I've never once felt like when I watched the video, felt like I did when it happened. Like I never looked at that and said, wow, this is incredible. This game is so magical. Because I felt it. It wasn't really that impressive. It was just being there was a very cool experience. And I think Star Citizen is kind of missing that extra bit with the gameplay that's needed to make it look cool. But right now, sometimes, like you said, it already feels great.
There's some stuff that happens organically that I don't think it's not by design. It's kind of chaos magic at work there. I know the first time I got a hold of my oldest friend in the world from all the way back in junior high school, and I know he's going through a rough patch. He's got kind of a rough position in his life, a rough role in his life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, why don't you check this game out with me? And he's like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. And we logged in for a couple hours just walking through that introduction. Here's how you navigate Area 18. And then within a few hours, we were on Aberdeen mining, and the sun started to come up, and it was this amazing moment that transcended so many things, because here I am talking to my oldest friend, somebody I've known 35 years, and we're just casually hanging out like we always do, but we're miles apart. We haven't actually physically seen each other in 5 or 6 years, and we're out here just mining, checking out the ambience of this awesome sunrise. And it's like camping trips we used to take when we were in high school or whatever else, and no other game's done that. No other game is even close to that. So, and that's just mining on Aberdeen.
Mm-hmm.
I've had 100 of those experiences since. So
now we get to get that experience in the clouds. I'm so pumped for that.
Right? And so pumped, and yet you see people that are already jaded about it. They're just like, oh, it's not going to work, or it's not going to do this, or it's not going to do that. It's just like, step back a minute, guys.
Just like, yeah. There was DG360 was doing a reaction video, and I was watching him talk about it, and somebody came up in chat and they had said something that was like, it was like a valid complaint, but it was just not about what was on the screen at the moment. And DG stopped the video, and he's just like, don't rain on this. Like, it feels good. Yeah. It's nice to just sit back and appreciate these things. Because I was leading up to this, I was like, you know what, Crusader, it's gonna be cool. It's a new location, but there's no new gameplay. Like, don't get your hopes up, because it's just another place. And even then, I watched that ISC episode, and I was just like, it still doesn't matter that it's just a place. This is not only is it like just a technical feat, right? I'm not a programmer or a game developer, but I haven't seen any other gas giants that are explorable. But also, it's just super iconic that it's finally going to be in the game. Right.
I think we lose track of things. I've been watching. There's a series. I can't remember the name of the YouTuber, but she's an Elite Dangerous player who just started playing Star Citizen. And she's losing her mind left and right, because it's all so new. The being able to get out of your ship, explore your ship, go around your ship. The what is it? She had a whole video of her just having her Armstrong moment the first time she set foot from the ramp onto a planet.
Mm.
And we lose track of that. We forget that. We forget the first time we got on a train, right? Because everybody remembers the first time that we got on a train and how amazing it was. We take the trains for granted now.
Yeah,
we lose track of the fact that
most of us
train's actually really cool.
Most of us just straight hate it. A lot of people say they just don't want it. I'm of the belief that I think a lot of the rest of the game, I think they're made for what the game's gonna be. Mm-hmm. So like right now, yeah, we have to take it a lot because we're always dying. but later. But that's not only do we kind of forget that stuff, we just downplay it because I guess like you said, we do it all the time.
Right.
Getting out of your ship should be an amazing thing.
It should. And you get those moments now. I think it was the first time I got into an arrow and I realized the animation for boarding the arrow was different than it was for getting into the Cutty Black. And they didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
They don't owe us that, right? They don't owe us that immersion that each ship has its own boarding animation, that there's these atmospheric elements in the game that they just put in there, and you can call it scale creep. That's valid. It is scale creep, but it's also magic. And when you're creating that level of magic, if they pull this hat trick off, which is ultimately what Star Citizen's going to be, is a hat trick, they will pull off the impossible. They will pull off a level of immersion that I don't think we'll see matched anywhere. And I think that's why people buy into the dream so easily, and why we get jaded by the dream so easily too, because we want it so bad.
Yeah.
We yearn for it.
Yeah. And like I said, it's starting to show some signs of things actually happening. So people are getting a little impatient, but
yeah,
it could be something great. It really could be. And I hope it is.
You're looking at it. I think if you look at it as an investor on a startup, it makes it a lot easier to deal with the hiccups. I'm investing in a startup. I'm investing in something that's an unproven commodity. And when you look at it that way, it makes the ups and downs of the development cycle a little easier to deal with, because there's going to be ups and downs. My wife and I opened a restaurant 12 years ago, and just getting it off the ground, just getting it open, just getting the menu printed, those were logistical nightmares that set our opening back 6 months. And that's just a small scale little restaurant in a mid-sized city in the United States. It's nothing like this video game. So
I'll just consider this to be my opening course in investment. University course. It's just like a 9-year course, and then YouTube is my elective. Just tie that in there.
Is your elective. Well, you're rocking YouTube. I'm not even blowing smoke here. Your YouTube content is what we call solid in the biz.
Thank you. I've been working hard to get to that solid.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's funny. Like if you watch content, if you watch enough content, I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to put yourself out there. And a lot of people are like, I've got a microphone, I've got a web camera, I'm on now. I have a Twitch, I have a YouTube. Why isn't anybody watching? And the reason's right there in front of you. You haven't polished your voice, you haven't polished your content, you don't do your research. You think that a camera and a microphone is all you need to actually do with content. And that's not it. So what you're doing, you're researching, you're putting in the work. I think I was watching one YouTuber who said these 20-minute videos take me hours to produce. Cool, you're doing the work. You're recognizing that it's work. So
it is work.
It is work.
I could talk for hours about just the last year doing this. It's YouTube is something else.
Yeah, it really is. It's and that's if you're just doing the content. You have to deal with the algorithm, whether or not you've stepped on anyone's copyright toes, whether or not you've violated some terms of service thing that you didn't even know existed. It's a whole whole thing.
And it's been a absolute blast. Now, obviously, I'm sure plenty of people have noticed that my YouTube content has decreased in quantity but increased in quality. That's something that people asked for a couple months ago, and so I obliged.
Right.
That also allowed me to open up some more time to do some other things, like start this podcast and stuff. And that's actually been an absolute joy, is kind of filling out everything around the YouTube has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing thing. I love, especially being in the broadcast industry as long as I've been, kind of seeing where it's going, right? The future of it. It's kind of cooler than I thought it would be. Yeah. We all knew terrestrial radio was going to die at some point, and it's definitely in its geriatric life support stage. But seeing where it's headed, seeing the absolute freedom and autonomy that a listener or a viewer has to consume media is kind of breathtaking. So if I want to watch some guy in Santa Monica talk about the best gardening practices and then turn around and watch Space Tomato right afterwards, I have that freedom. I don't have to wait for a broadcast window. I don't have to wait for a scheduled time. It's all there. And if I missed the live recording on Twitch, I can turn around and watch the live stream. I can turn around and watch the recording later. It's amazing.
And you get double tomato content too with the guy gardening. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Sounds like a good day to me.
It is. So, and if you want to learn about indeterminate and determinate tomatoes,
there you go.
Welcome to my tomato talk.
The little tagline. Actually, going back to something you had mentioned, like you said, putting yourself out there is tough. I think it was maybe. Actually, it's kind of been a gradual thing over the last few months. But I guess it finally clicked in my head just a couple of months ago that people are actually like watching my videos. I don't know. You never really consider that people are watching, like actually watching, and then somebody says something that you didn't think anybody was ever going to see. And you're just like, wait a second, there are thousands of eyes watching this.
Thousands.
And that realization is a little weird.
It is. We had this saying, a station manager that I worked with would always say that the key to this whole thing, well, he had a couple of sayings that I kind of took to heart. One was that you had to hate yourself and love yourself in equal reproach to do broadcast of any kind. You had to be this self-loathing narcissist that took yourself seriously enough to put yourself out there and recognize that people would hate you and love you for it, and at the same time despise yourself enough to recognize that you're not all that, that you could do better, that you can push yourself forward, and that's the only way that you're going to make it. And then his other one was that if you were going to succeed in this medium, you had to break down that fourth wall between you and your audience. So even though the people listening or watching, in your case, they're not in the room with you, if you can make them feel like they're in the room with you, then you've won. You've conquered the medium and you've made it yours, right? So it's that approachability that makes it magic. And if you can't approach somebody, if somebody doesn't feel like they're having that conversation with you, you have no future. You should move on. Find something else.
That was a super, super good point about making somebody feel like they're in the room, because when I started making videos, that was something, I don't think that was exactly what I was thinking, but I would watch videos and I'd be like, this doesn't feel as, I don't want to say immersive because CIG has trademarked that one, but it's the same idea. Like it's more engaging, you know? And that's kind of what I was looking for, especially starting to do more motion graphics and stuff like that. I feel like giving somebody that tangible thing to look and understand makes things so much better.
Well, I remember, and it sounds like I'm doing a glow up on your show, but I have a reason to do this. I've been following Star Citizen for, since the Kickstarter, but never really wanted to get into it. And it was December of 2020, peak pandemic, and I'm going completely bonkers in my house because I'm working from home. I'm closed in, pandemic, lockdowns, restrictions, whatever. Yeah. And one of your videos popped up in my feed, and I think it was just because I was excited about Mass Effect Legendary Edition coming out.
Oh, they just announced it, right?
Yeah, they just announced it about that time, or we were seeing early gameplay or whatever, and so space game videos started popping up in my suggested feed, and one of your videos popped up, and it was right at the end of 2.12. I think it was your end of year roundup for the game, and that hook came up, that ambient space music and the solid production, and that the voice that walked as a man popped in, and I thought, okay, this dude's got some solid content, and all of a sudden I'm downloading Star Citizen, and that was kind of an amazing hook. So that's the beauty of what we're doing in this media, is that we can say to somebody, hey, look at this magical thing that this group of renegade coders that are refusing to subscribe to the studio system, look at what they're building for you. Let me be your gateway to this. That's what we try to do in Geek Show all the time too, is look at this movie, look at the Green Knight movie that's coming up at the end of July. Why do you want to see this? Why is this going to be a powerful media event for you? Why is this going to be something that's going to emotionally overwhelm you? Why is this something that you're going to want to consume and make part of you? And that's the power of what you're doing right now, is you bring people in and you make them feel at home with this content that isn't finished. It's janky. It bugs out and crashes.
I want to say first, thank you. I've never received such praise live on camera. But thank you so much. And second, Star Citizen just deserves it, for as detailed as a game as it is. It deserves a higher level of videos covering it. It deserves the cinematics that people are making about it. It deserves the really high quality machinima that people do in the super, super in-depth feature dives, because we get so much information. I know sometimes it feels like they don't talk, and sometimes, honestly, they don't say everything that I feel they should. Or maybe they say too much. But that being said, we still do get a lot of information and a lot of communication. And you can't just like get all of that and then go and try and make a video and not acknowledge it.
No. And is there anything that looks like this? And I shouldn't get caught up in the visuals, because it can be the prettiest thing in the world. If it doesn't have content, it doesn't fly.
But the visuals are great.
And the visuals can maybe be the content, right? So, and that's, interestingly enough, restarting Mass Effect this week. even with the Legendary Edition, even with the graphics overhaul and the polish pass and all that other stuff, it's not Star Citizen.
Yeah. I've heard that so many times now. The Star Citizen has made other games less fun.
Right.
And
it's like and I'm not saying this because I'm a Marvel Cinematic Universe fanboy. I am, but and it's not because I dislike DC Comics properties, but I think what happened with your Marvel Comics movies is that they made the DC Comics look dour and depressing. And they had to turn around and say, okay, well, we need to make a movie like Shazam and bring in some fun because we've had so much brooding going on. And I think Star Citizen's kind of like that with other games right now, where so they go, okay, well, is Beyond Good and Evil 2 ever going to come out? Because, you know, we talk about games that are in development hell. That game looks amazing. I want to play it.
Yeah.
They put out a great trailer, but
Yep.
So let's harp on Star Citizen some more for delaying things.
I think it's been like 15, 14 years since they first talked about the game. They didn't obviously announce that it was in production, but like they've been talking about it for a long time.
Right. Or we could be like Bethesda and continue cranking out the same patched up code game after game.
Or just keep selling the same game. Oh yeah.
Right. Hey, and I bought Skyrim multiple times. I can't say that I'm immune to that.
I bought it once.
I didn't even know there was a campaign. I just thought it was Bandit Camp, the game, right?
Just a big sandbox.
Yeah, that's how I played it. And subsequently why Star Citizen clicks for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people loved about Skyrim, at least, was that it was like that. It was very open. Allowed you to just basically do whatever you wanted at any time.
And what I wanted to do was wander from Bandit Camp to Bandit Camp and show them arrows.
Sounds like a Far Cry game.
Yeah, it was Far Cry with arrows and dragons.
But yeah, the whole idea of Star Citizen ruining other games, I think this is a statement that honestly, to me, if I didn't know the context, would sound very pompous. Because Star Citizen because Star Citizen is just nowhere near the quality of these games. Obviously, the gameplay, the story, the writing, everything is much better put together in these games that they're releasing, no doubt. But it's that like that detail. It's like I had a friend who he played he was huge on Call of Duty up until 2011 or so, 2012, and then he jumped into Battlefield 4. And all he could talk about was Battlefield 4. He never wanted to play Call of Duty anymore. All he could talk about was how much more like little things that were in Battlefield that made it feel so much more like a Battlefield. And I feel like you get that same thing, but for every game with Star Citizen.
Yeah. It's the what is it? The best way I could sum it up is trying to the sales pitch to friends, because I'm always trying to get friends to come on and play the game and join the org, because you know the Garden Interstellar Initiative is a great place to meet friends and team up and learn how to play the game if you're a newcomer. So I'm always like, come play the game. They're like, okay, give me the elevator pitch. Like, I landed my great big ship behind a mountain and got in my little ship that was in the big ship and flew into a city, and I went wherever I wanted. 1 out of 10 bites.
I don't even tell my friends yet, because and that might be because I'm such a visual person. Instead, I don't tell them. I would just show them, and like there's not really a convincing video yet, I think, for Star Citizen, because the gameplay is not there.
No,
but you can bet. Oh, you can bet that when the gameplay is there, and they do it. If they actually do it, I am going to make the best sales pitch they could ever ask for, because that is my thank you for actually making this happen.
Uncle Tomato's Space Time Theater. Check this out, boys and girls. Look what we got here. Got this magical game. Oh, we had a race last Saturday night. It was an unofficial race in the org, and there was about 12, 14 people there on Daymar flying around in canyons. And it took an hour and a half to set up, which is a long time.
But that's about average.
And we got to race for about half an hour before the sun went down and everything exploded. But boy, what a half hour that was. It was intense. And again, a snapshot at what's possible with all that.
Yeah. So, sometimes you're like, do I really want to sit down for 2 hours just so that I can go like meet at a bar with a friend? And then
Yes.
you get there and you're like, yeah.
And some of you guys are playing with VoIP, which is mystifying to me. That's the the AI Armageddon that I didn't see happening. I didn't see that one coming. The first time I saw somebody actually talking in Star Citizen with full voice acting, facial acting, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like a Stone Age man looking at an iPad. And
Yeah, for those who don't know, VoIP is face over IP, and it allows you to use a webcam, any regular webcam, much like mine here on the
yeah,
top of my computer, and it reads your face as long as you have good lighting and translates that into your in-game character for everybody to see. It's pretty impressive.
right. Oh, it's terrifying and terrifyingly impressive. There's people that are doing their machinima videos, and
Yeah.
I could see this. Okay, I did a thing Thursday night. Not Thursday night, Wednesday night.
Mhm.
I got on the org and I said, "Hey, I need corpses." And everybody there said, "Huh?" And a couple of our newer players were like, "Oh, this guy's out of his mind." Well,
Maybe this isn't the org for me.
maybe this isn't it. And I was like, no, I'm in science. I'm heavily involved in the science division, and my scientific process for tonight, I couldn't actually play, is that I need to see if bodies from killed NPCs are persistent, because we've tried it. We tried picking them up from crash sites. We tried picking them up from derelict sites in space, and they will not leave their zone. They'll rubber band right back to where they were generated at. So it's like, okay, so go to Security Post Korea. You guys are headed there anyway. You just got the mission. I will give 100,000 credits for every instance of an NPC you get off that station and onto a ship. So what happened there? I became a quest giver as a player, and 600,000 credits later, we found out you can take dead NPCs from Security Post Korea, and you can put them on your ship, and you can take them off at mining stations, and you can, like, Doc figured out that you can haul them down into the refinery deck. That's science. That's gameplay. But
emerging gameplay.
Exactly. They had a blast, and those bodies lasted for like an hour before they despawned.
That's good to know, because we could definitely use that for props.
Right? That's what I wanted them for. They will not survive a bedlog, though. You can't load your station up full of bodies in bedlog. So we figured something cool out. The 6 people that went and dragged bodies around for an hour had a blast, and I got to become an NPC quest giver. I wasn't in the game. I wasn't there. So what other game lets you do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is one. I have the gameplay in my head, but I can't remember. But yeah, that's it right there. And that is a very interesting discussion that has not been had. Of all the discussion we've had about this game, we have never heard about how players are going to be mission givers for other players. We have beacons, so it is very, very clearly a thing. But, like, how deep are you going to be able to get? Are there going to be mission templates that you give? Like,
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
And if there's not, you can do it. Like, we're doing an event, Science Division event tomorrow, and I am so excited about this because I'm set dressing it. We're taking Reclaimer, and we're just going to blow the crap out of the back end of it without destroying it. We've already learned what its limits are. It will not take a missile with shields down, whatever. Yeah, I'm getting fired up. But we're going to set dress this thing, because anybody who's been in a Mercury Star Runner after it's taken a certain amount of damage, anybody who's been in a ship and gotten out of their pilot seat knows what the damage state in a ship looks like. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to hide a Reclaimer, a badly damaged Reclaimer without its power on, in the middle of the Yela asteroid belt. And the mission is going to be, go find it with your scanners in 90 minutes.
You should put something in there and tell them they have to retrieve that.
Yep, they do. They have to retrieve the pilot that are alive. They have to retrieve whatever the pilot was hauling, and they have to haul it back to the science station, Hicks Research on Sullen, right? So the game gave me the props. The set is dressed. All I have to do is bring the toys.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about in terms of missions. Putting a little lore behind it is really nice. This is something that I wanted to bring up actually at a staff meeting recently, just the idea that having more operations like that with some lore and story behind them goes a long way. And the set dressing, like you said, it's a lot of work,
Right.
but that's why people are coming to our organization. You know, they want to
Exactly.
experience the game that they're seeing, and
Well,
it's hard to do that without setting it up a
without a
little bit.
game.
Yeah.
You have to create it. You have
Yeah.
to be creative with it, and I think that's anybody who's played. I always go back to, my first love in games was not video, it was tabletop, and so I always go back to that. Is what they've given us is a set of tools that we can use as role players, as role playing gamers, that actually have some pretty well defined parameters, and we can play with those things, and we can build that. We can build mystery. I can, as a producer, as an audio person, I could actually create audio that I could play over Discord while we're playing that will add to that ambience.
That
And
would that would be
that's
so cool.
powerful.
Yeah, that
That's powerful.
is. I mean, wow. When you talk about something like that,
Hmm.
then it starts to sound like an actual digital Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game. Like
It
you
can be.
could be a dungeon master and make a whole thing
Yes.
with
Yes.
custom audio, and then
Mm-hmm.
just to top it off, you could just have a couple people there with cameras who film the whole thing, turn it into a little movie, and upload it.
Exactly.
That's
So, like, I'm not doing this, but if I had the time and the forethought, I could actually work with members of another org and say, "Hey, can you guys log in on my server in your best pirate gear and come scare these guys while they're trying to do the ship?" Actually have them acting as NPCs. But then again, we're going to be in the yellow belt. Chances are a pirate NPC is going to pop up anyway. So those elements are there, and that element of the unknown is there, and
Mhm.
that's kind of when I was dungeon mastering, that's what I always looked for, is what the players were headed for, and
Sounds
then
like
catering towards that.
Sounds like you were a natural.
I like to tell stories.
Yeah, it's a good quality, man, especially in a game like this.
Hmm.
And getting. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say, go ahead to you.
Oh,
Sure.
getting back to some of the stuff we were talking about features earlier, and
Mhm.
never really got past the stuff that already happened. But looking ahead, before talking about 314, I want to talk about one more thing that they talked about in the Sandy and Chris update video. That was server meshing. This is
Oh
a
yeah,
very, very big topic.
so
Probably
exciting.
probably the biggest topic, I think, in the game right now. This is the most anticipated feature in the game. It will make a heap load of difference, maybe not in the first patch, but eventually over time it will make a heap load of difference in terms of how many people you can see while you're playing the game. So
Right.
it sounds like it's still a ways off. If persistence is hopefully coming by the end of this year, I imagined that server meshing wouldn't be closer than 3 updates after that. So I'm thinking maybe this time next year we see server meshing. Do you think that's going to be a problem for people? Because a lot of people are waiting for, a lot of people expected it honestly late this year.
Right.
And while some of the gameplay is coming in, server meshing is always going to be important in terms of stability. Do you see these operations that you're planning expanding much before we start to get into that territory, or do you kind of keep it small for now?
I think for now we'll keep it small, and it's a matter of checked expectations. I hate to keep bringing it back to Star Wars analogies, but that's what I do.
Gold standard.
A lot of people spent the years between the prequels and the new trilogy really desperately wanting the further adventures of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
Mhm.
And what they got was kind of a kick-ass story about a girl finding her destiny at a lightsaber and some friends. And that's a good story. Maybe the execution wasn't perfect. Maybe you hated the third episode of the new trilogy, whatever. But whatever it was, there was some promise that was reached that a lot of people rejected out of hand because it wasn't the story they wanted, and it wasn't the story that they had headcanoned in their own mythology. And I think that's what we have a danger of with Star Citizen. People are saying, "Oh, well, when server meshing happens, then piracy is going to be so cool because we can have 100 pirates on at any given time. And it won't just be the 50 people that get shoehorned into your server." And they're not realizing that what it really is going to allow is that if a server fails, we don't 30K. That's the important part, right?
That is nice. That would
Yeah.
be very nice. That's one of the bigger problems that people have with the game.
Right. And I haven't seen a lot of 30Ks lately. It's when I first started playing 6, 7 months ago, it was a nightly occurrence. Now it's once a week, and that's progress. I'll take it. Um, I like the idea that what they're talking about doing like zonal servers. So you'll have a server that handles Hurston, you'll have a server that handles different elements, and that's great. But it's like a blanket carry. If you've ever worked in the medical industry, if you're by yourself and you have a patient you needed to move, you're going to hurt that patient and you're going to hurt yourself moving that patient. But if you have a blanket that you can put under that patient and 6 people that can work together carrying the blanket with the patient on it, you're each carrying 20 to 30 pounds. No one's getting hurt and the patient gets moved easily. Server meshing is that. It's a blanket carry for servers. It's 20 servers carrying the load that one server was trying to handle on its own.
Yeah.
So, and I love what Chris said. He said, oh, when a server's fresh, and I've experienced this, when a server's fresh, everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody says, okay, I'm going to Sullen now. And then somebody else says, oh, I'm going to Arc L1 now. And then somebody else says, I'm going to go to Daymar and see what's there. All of a sudden, that server has to populate those 3 areas.
Yeah.
And then you multiply that to 50 people. Of course, we're crashing.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
That gets
so.
And it's a bummer too when you load into a fresh server and it feels good and you're playing and everything's working. Like there's no real hiccups or rubber banding, and then it takes like 5 to 10 minutes.
Have you seen a fresh NPC in a cave mission?
No, I've never gone. Yeah, I hear it's scary. I hear they're intense.
Yeah, they react. I'm pretty sure you asked about it and we didn't capture it, and I'm sad about it now. But I'm positive that an NPC came out of a cave that we were about ready to go into. He just wandered out and he emoted at us. He like mocked that he was scared, and then he shot somebody. And it was like he was acting so organic and natural that we thought he was a player.
I feel like a player wouldn't have been that clever.
Well, it's like, hey, how did you get your remotes to work?
Yeah. Player would have just shot.
Exactly.
Done the emote later.
That's the future. That's the future right there. Was when they had the talk about Quanta a month ago, and they're talking about being able to hunt a space pirate that blew you up, being able to get a contract on him in a bar. That gives me chills.
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
That was actually. I'm hoping that it is that deep. They talked about a couple things in that conversation, and I was like, okay, this sounds really good, but how is that going to work? Like he's talking about this person who you got that bounty against. They got away from you too, and they committed another crime. They got away and they committed another crime, and they keep doing that for, let's say, months in game time, and. Then he said, well, then he could reach the possibility where he's the crime boss and he's giving you missions. And I'm like, okay, pump the brakes. How was he going to go from being a regular character to giving me missions? Is he going to have voice lines now? Is he going to have a place where he's set up? Are you guys going to go into the game and like track him down and put him in a spot?
It's been done, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's the Middle Earth game that came out a few years ago where you're out. What's it? Shadow of Mordor, I think was the name of the game. And they had a mechanic called the Nemesis system baked into it.
Yeah, and that was a great system, but that also was like those characters were just always roaming, right?
Right.
They didn't actually have a set character that they had to sit there for the story mode. They just kind of ran into you and gave you a one-liner and tried to kill you.
Yeah, but if you then attacked them, and this is kind of what came up when, was it Tony Z that was talking about it, the Quanta thing? Yeah. That's immediately what I flashed to, because playing Shadow of Mordor, and I got in a situation where I killed all the orcs but one, and then he took off and went and got more orcs, and I killed all of his orcs, but I didn't kill him, and he had scars from the fight. So when he came back, he was actively hunting my character at that point, and he was building his own army, literally with the sole intention of destroying me. That became his obsession at that point. And he was cowardly, though, because I had burned him with fire, so he was afraid of fire. And that was all stuff that developed through the Nemesis system. And I think if you were to tie that parameter in and say, okay, here's a pirate that's just, his route is the Hurston planetary system. and that's the only area that he's going to go to. But he can act with autonomy within those areas, and maybe you throw something like the Nemesis system in, where if he loses a fight or he goes to jail because you caught him, maybe he's got a grudge. Maybe that's how reputation works. You build reputation with NPCs. They have to be a certain level of NPC though, right? They can't just be some scrub.
Yeah.
They got to be.
Yeah.
They gotta be a guy who's coded that way. But
And I like that you actually mentioned that, because they did talk about, when Shadow of Mordor first came out, they did talk about that and how that was going to be part of the game. And you just brought that up, and that made me link that back to that, because now they're talking about this whole idea of them becoming mission givers. I'm still waiting to be convinced of how they're going to do the voice acting and stuff, if they're going to do that. But maybe they'll just send emails and something. But that is pretty cool. And the quantum system.
We'll see a glimmer of it when we have unique shopkeepers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
oh boy,
the same lady.
The shopkeepers. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The shopkeepers take me following the path of shopkeepers take us back through like the bartender meme and just history there. The shopkeepers are one that I am very impressed are still just not working great. Like you can't even talk to them.
No, there's that one lady that was floating. Like her feet were 3 feet off the ground all the time, and you'd be like, "Oh man, her anti-grav isn't working." And I noticed at the beginning of 313, she was on the ground. I was like, "I'm so happy for her that she's not,
She must have lost that technology, unfortunately.
Exactly. Her personal anti-grav unit is no longer functioning. But
so besides, so we talked about server meshing. We've talked about the Crusade that's coming up, the new planet. We talked about what did we start off talking about? Medical.
That's the danger of talking to me. We're gonna go everywhere.
The medical.
We're gonna go everywhere and nowhere.
It was the medical and science gameplay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to exploration, because I guess that's kind of science gameplay, but that's what I'm excited for. And we know that the new scanning is coming up. What did you think of the method, the long-term or the long-distance scanning, the probe method that they were talking about? Did you like what you were hearing about that?
Yeah, I'm excited about it, and I'm it depends on how it works. Like if you send a probe through a jump gate to see if it's stable, that sounds exciting to me. If you're sending a probe out to see if it's safe to quantum jump to your destination, like what if you had to, and this is me spitballing, theory crafting, but what if long distance probes became part of bounty hunting to a degree? Like you needed to jump to go intercept a bounty, but you want to actually send the probe out to find the guy first before you jump in and attack him. Make sure he's even there. That stuff's exciting. That is so exciting. Yeah. I also think on a planetary level, like if you could actually do an FPS long distance probing, like send a probe or a drone down into a cave to mark your hostiles or to mark your resources, that's some next level stuff. And I'm all on board for it.
That just made me think of the Mass Effect 2 scanning where you send the probe down to the probe launched.
And you think about Mass Effect's silly hacking game, or for that matter, Skyrim's silly lockpicking game. We already know the elements of these things. It's how they're going to dress it to make it work for their game, but it's all there.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, the hacking interface that we saw. I hope that's actually what it's going to look like. I know that was a mock-up, but like if it it looked really cool. It looked a lot like the Deus Ex interface.
Deus Ex, and I was looking at there's a RPG, a Shadowrun RPG that I absolutely love, and that actually gets into virtual reality gameplay where you leave your body and you jack into the Matrix basically. And it's a lot of that. It's a lot of finding different connection and pathway points and closing them and opening them, and it's puzzles. That's all it is. Yeah. That's fine. All puzzles. That's all mining is a puzzle. It's a ramp puzzle. It's a mouse wheel puzzle. So yeah, that's cool.
Honestly, hacking to me is less important than those because it's not a profession. It's more of an activity. It's something that I hope is fleshed out, and I'm happy to hear that they're doing something pretty significant with it. But I wouldn't expect it to be as deep as healing or mining or salvaging.
No, I think hacking is going to be part of a loop that. And I've been thinking about this a lot because the part that I'm excited about, and we were talking before we started recording about like my dream game is to be able to sit in an MSR and broadcast a radio station. I realize that's not a profession that CIG is worried about, but the data running, I think, is where hacking is going to come into play, where you're going to send your hacker into a bunker. Say he goes down to some bunker and your grunts go and clear the bunker out. Your hacker gets in there and gets the data, puts it on a chip, puts it on a blade, puts it on whatever, and then the gameplay is literally getting that data transferred from the hacker to the transfer to the runner, to the courier, and then to the buyer. And that's really exciting to me because it's organic and it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're the hacker, you've gone down to the planet, you've gone in with your team, you cleared out the hostiles, you went to Security Post Korea, and you, instead of hacking a crime stat, you actually hacked Imperial data or Xi'an data or whatever it is that the mission's calling for. And then somebody has to take an MSR and actually transport that data safely, or just intercepting data that's been beamed from one party to another and being able to hold it hostage so that they don't have their data, right? That's all really cool stuff.
That's like to the T what I want to do. I always tell people when they ask, I said this even yesterday, when they ask what I want to do in the game, I'm like, set me up as Liara. Yeah, I'm gonna be the shadow broker. So we might be able to work together, because that's right up my alley. And I was so obsessed with that idea. I wrote a Star Citizen fan fiction. Yeah, I wrote like a pretty, this is maybe 2 chapters long, but it was just a story of a data runner who was stealing some special he's stealing a special device from Crusader on the money of Hurston, but when he was caught, he had a shell company, and like there was this whole thing, and it was fun. But that is the fantasy. That's it right there. The data running is so cool.
That fantasy is the last 10 minutes of Rogue One, right?
Yeah.
You got the Death Star plans off of that planet, and your team may have died in the process, but man, you got it to the blockade runner. The blockade runner got it out from the blockade, and lo and behold, some stupid farm boy found it and met his destiny.
And then boom. There's one of the biggest one of the biggest movie franchises of all time.
Literally started with data running.
It's kind of funny when I think about how simple this is. A video idea that I've had, and I wrote this actually like a good year and a half ago. It was one of my first like serious scripts. I'm gonna make it at some point, probably when we get a little bit more information, but it's all about the idea that missions should be simple, but the complications that get thrown at you because of quantum, because of whatever it is, should make it obviously not simple. Like if you look at a normal movie, the what is it? Solo. Their objective is to just go pick something up and take it to another place, and it ends up turning into like an hour and a half movie. That's how it always is. You don't have to have some crazy in-depth mission to have fun. You just have to have variables thrown at you.
It's cliched, but it's taking the meme of it's the friends you made along the way. That's part of the story. Part of the story is the MacGuffin, whatever it is you're transporting from A to B, or whatever it is you're going to point B to get. Or the plot device that's caused all of you to go on that mission together. But when you're doing tabletop games, one of the biggest things you want to keep in mind if you're game mastering is what are your random elements. So in the old days we called them wandering monsters. I like to call them random elements though, because it might not be a bugbear on the road. It might not be a bandit camp. It might be a hurricane. It might be an earthquake. It might be any number of things. So it's those random events that can pop in. Was it not Dragon Age? Guild Wars 2 has awesome random events that pop up. And you'll be in the middle of your quest. You're out there doing your thing, hunting down bandits, because that's what I do. But then some orcs decided they're going to steal everything from a temple, and that was randomly generated. So next thing you know, you're like, okay, well, I could keep doing this boring fetch quest, or I can go stop these orcs from tearing this temple apart. That's kind of fun. So that's all stuff that we can do. Those random elements in Star Citizen can be other players. Yeah. You have a pirate. The pirate is a random element. That's an interrupting element. That's a wandering monster in classic game terms right there. You've got some rogue jerk with a mole that's cutting people in half. Well, that's your boss level fight. Go get him.
Yeah. It really is something when you think about that. And that's why, like, CIG, do not let Tony Z go, please. No. This dude is working magic. Just let him sit down and do his, like, crunchy brain genius stuff, because It sounded really good. And
you know, that touches into something I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll indulge me on this,
I will.
A lot of people were giving Chris Roberts a lot of crap about his short video taking half an hour. You're an engineer by trade, right?
Yep.
Okay. How many engineers do you know that are comfortable talking in a group setting about anything that's not engineering related?
A few.
But not the majority, right?
Yeah. Like the more charismatic bunch.
Chris Roberts writes code. That dude's brain is code. Every coder I've ever known, that's their brain. English is a second language. Whatever their native language is code. So you get this guy and he comes on with this very, very charismatic wife that people are really creepily obsessed with. You get these two come on and they say, we want to do a quick video. Anybody who's ever talked to a coder, anybody who's ever talked to somebody who's behind the scenes that spends all of their time with their head under the hood, that's not going to be a 5-minute video. That's not going to be a 5-minute talk. That's people were giving Tony Z a lot of crap for saying a lot of ums and I means. He's translating from whatever his brain speaks in to English.
Yeah,
I mean, give him a freaking break.
Some people forget that the people who are talking that's not their profession. That's not even a hobby. Like they're doing it because they have to. And I always respect the game developers who get up and make a devlog on YouTube because I know they don't want to do that. That is so extra for them.
It's so uncomfortable. I work in my day job. I have to interview therapists all the time for the company I work for. And you would think that people who talk to people for a living would feel really comfortable with me barging in with cameras and microphones. And no, not at all. Not at all. My job is 70% inspiring people to talk. And
at least you're good at that then.
I'm a natural.
That would help. I think that would help.
My lack of modesty with that, I can get people to talk.
That's a good skill, man. You tell people that, then they'll probably want to talk more.
Well, that's what we usually do. We start a conversation, and usually it's what music do you like, right? If you want to get somebody talking, talk about music, talk about movies, talk about things they love.
Yeah.
Don't disagree with them. Don't engage. Just keep talking about the thing they love. Yep. And next thing you know, you're having several hour long conversation. That's the best icebreaker in the world. Get people talking about what they love.
You just connected your normal job to the other thing you do. That sounds like a podcast.
It is. Podcasting is just talking. That's all it is. That's what we've been doing since we started talking.
Yeah.
So it's a conversation.
One other thing that I feel like really drives Chris to make a video that will never be shorter than double what he says it's going to be is he's just so passionate about it. It is his dream. He would talk about this.
Believe that passion?
Yeah, it's crazy. The amount of, and this is not to say that Chris hasn't had his moments. Nobody's gone this far without making mistakes, but the amount that he has gone through and endured to make this happen and actually made it happen just speaks towards the passion he has for it. It's crazy. I've never seen anybody talk about a video game like he does. I've never seen anybody use so many hand gestures while they do it either. He's very excited about the game, so of course he's going to go in and talk about it for 30 minutes. I'm surprised it didn't go on for longer.
It could have, and I think that's why you have to have to have somebody with you. You have to have somebody giving you grief.
Yeah.
I had a video I recorded the other day for my podcast, and it was for Patreon content. And one of my passions, other than space games, Star Wars, animation, I'm sorry, I have too many passions. I love Arthurian legends. I love the old pre-Arthurian, pre-Norman era Arthurian legends from like Welsh mythology.
Okay.
And so one of the ladies on the podcast, Rebecca, she's awesome, great person to talk to. And she's like, hey, how about we do a little 5 to 10 minute talking about this Green Knight movie that's coming up? I was like, sure, let's do that. That wasn't going to be 5 or 10 minutes. And we're lucky it wasn't an hour or 2 hours. We're lucky we even got off the story of the Green Knight even remotely, because I'll keep going. I'll go for hours. And that's passion. That's the power of passion. That's the currency of passion. That guy's vault of passion is overflowing. And he's been wanting to build this game for us to play in frankly, it's his game. The fact that we get to indulge in it is kind of nice. I'm
Yeah.
sure we're paying for it, but
Yeah, and I mean that's also part of the whole argument that hey, you guys need to do what we want. To a certain extent, yes, but it's his game. So
it's his game.
in the
It's
end,
his game.
he's gonna have the say, and we're
Right.
just kind of along for the ride, which I'm cool with because luckily my interests line up very well with his.
Right.
Like that's
where will all the Star Citizen content creators be
I always
if
tell
these guys
people.
weren't updating us constantly?
I always tell people if there were another game doing what Star Citizen is doing better, you bet I would leave Star Citizen right there and
Right.
then. Like, make it. Everybody's talking about how this game's taken too long, how it's not doing things right, how it, you need to get Chris out of there because he doesn't know how to handle the project because whatever, he's an idealist and not a manager, but he's the only one doing it. So
Yeah.
what else do you do?
Do you think that story's changed at all since Cyberpunk came out?
I
I'm
think
counter interviewing now.
I think it shifts in slow waves. I think there were certainly
Right.
some people probably sat back and were like, okay, this can happen to anything. Like these things need to take time. But at the same time, people will always find an excuse. Oh, well, they were working
Sure.
on another game. Oh, they were working on DLC too.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
they whatever the excuse might be. There's always going to be one. I think that slowly, very slowly, it is being chipped away with just by the industry in general. I mean,
Right.
Cyberpunk isn't the first, right? It was before it was Anthem.
It wasn't the first. It was Anthem.
Before that was
Odyssey, Elite Dangerous
Andromeda.
Odyssey right now.
Elite
Yeah.
Dangerous Odyssey now, yeah. Dragon Age Dragon Age has kind of fallen off, but I'm just surprised to see that they aren't even going to talk about it at EA Play this month.
Fallout 76.
Yeah, that was another tough one. So it's like I think it's slowly going away, and you can see that with the funding and with how many people are joining the game all the time. I mean, you joined just 6 months ago. I actually
Right.
find it very, very curious how it popped up my video while you were watching other sci-fi games, but just people are
Still might be
becoming.
algorithm.
I love the algorithm. People are starting to change their mind, though, and at the very least, be open to listening. And that's why a lot of my content in the last 7 to 8 months has focused very heavily on people who are watching for the first time. I explain the
Mhm.
things I'm talking about. I try to reference other videos I've made. I talk about things in the most basic language I can because that's what's happening with the game right now. Cyberpunk
Right.
definitely helped, though. And in the short answer, Cyberpunk, yes,
think-
I think it helped.
I think it really did. And I also think this is my own personal belief. I have no proof behind this, but I honestly believe the video game industry wants Star Citizen to fail. And I worked for several years. I was an entertainment contributor for Bleeding Cool. It's an international, entertainment news website.
Mhm.
And whenever we covered Star Citizen, it wasn't to sing its praises. Now, it didn't earn it during that period of time. It was just barely picking up steam around 2016, 2017. But the clickbait at the time, the meta you were going for with your headlines wasn't breathtaking visuals combined to potential that you will never see again. That was never what we were going for. Is Star Citizen a scam? Is Chris Roberts' wife building another swimming pool after your new ship sale?
Not the
right?
swimming pool.
Not the swimming pool. Oh my God. Did you guys think, oh, she's a model and an actress and he's actually developed some really big games? Maybe they were already wealthy.
Yeah, they're already actually kind of rich.
Yeah. You're going to tell me the money he made from Freelancer didn't pay for that pool? Anyway, we get so caught up in our own internal meta that we've built, our own internal dialogue that we built around these games, that we kind of forget that there's a real picture out there and we're not necessarily privy to that. So
Yeah. With that being said, and I think actually it's quite topical considering passion. We've blown past the hour mark on this one. That's what Star Citizen will do to you.
24 hours. 24 hours. Let's go.
We're just gonna do
24 hours.
a potathon. But no, this has been a fantastic talk, man. I have to have you back on because this just wasn't enough, and we're hanging out in the same org. you come by the Twitch streams sometimes, and we'll be playing together, of course. But we definitely got to hang out
Absolutely.
and talk about this stuff again. And I do actually have something to mention to you, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that off the podcast. But again,
Okay.
everybody, thank you for tuning in to this episode. It's been great. Spent a lot of time on Star Citizen. There's a lot to talk about. But
You didn't even hit 75% of your show notes. Can you believe it?
yeah, well, you hit it with I hit the best 25%. So we'll go with that. But thank you guys, everybody. Again, this was a Star Citizen heavy episode, but we talk about all kinds of games on here. And Vagabond Prime, thank you for being my guest today. You'll be able to come
My
back.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
You guys will be able to come back and see other guests. You'll be able to see me speak solo, maybe, if I can do that for an hour, and just get more news and opinions about the industry and the gaming market. So thanks again for watching. This will be up on YouTube. If you're there, please give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe for more. And if you're listening to this on any of the services that we are now on, going straight from Spotify's Anchor service, please give it a rating, give it a review, let us know what you think. And until next
Absolutely.
week, thank you so much for coming.